My name is Sandra Musselwhite, and you are at the Virginia Beach Real Estate Investors Group meeting. This morning we're going to talk about a gentleman who came to me for mentoring services. He was, and may still be, a captain in the U.S. Navy. He had just got back from Afghanistan after serving a year, where he had received his pay tax-free. He had taken a course, which he paid dearly for, and 2 additional classes. And when I sit down with somebody to mentor them, I always ask them to bring the material that they covered in that class. And fortunately, I'm a speed reader, because sometimes it's real big. In this case, he only had 2 small notebooks, about the size you would get for an essay class that you might take in high school or college. So I went through them fairly quick, and I looked across the table at him, and I said, rather sheepishly, do you realize that this is the exact same material, only rearranged? And he went, well, no, I didn't, because he had paid $5,000 for each one of them. And so that's $10,000 he had paid for this much material, which was exactly the same, not to mention the time he had put into it. And it was on lease options, which I had one time been considered one of the experts nationally on lease options. And after he digested that, he said, well, I guess I'll be able to use that in meeting my objectives. I said, well, no, not really, because as you told me, your objective was to have some tax write-offs, and lease options don't really give you any tax write-offs to speak of. And secondly, you told me your objective was to have money to put your daughter through college. His daughter was 18 months old. So that didn't seem to be too big of a deal. His daughter's 18 months old and is going to go to college probably in 16 years. So we sat down with his goal and reanalyzed where he was at and where he was going. The first thing I do when I sit down with somebody is have them give me their goals and objectives. Well, that was one of his major goals and objectives. The next thing we do is look at their credit report. Well, this Navy captain who received a in-field promotion from lieutenant to captain was a graduate of West Point. Therefore, he started out as an ensign. Guess what his credit report said he was? An ensign. What kind of credit do you think an ensign has versus a Navy captain? Nothing. Nothing. So we had to correct his credit. After we did that, I set up some exercises for him to develop what's called an investor mindset. Many people start out in the investment field with lots of enthusiasm and quickly wear themselves out. If you don't have an investment mindset, you can know everything. But if you don't change it up here in your mind, you will not last. People think that as an investor, you have no emotional involvement. If you can't sleep at night, folks, you're emotionally involved. So it's real important that you first recognize that and develop ways to sleep at night and eat during the day and not develop ulcers. It has nothing to do with toilets. People say, oh, I don't want to be in the toilet business. It's not a toilet business, it's a people business. Does everybody agree? Yes, and if you don't agree, you need to think about an attitude adjustment. When you go, for instance, from dating many women to a couple of women to one woman to getting married, do you not have an attitude adjustment? When you go from being a renter to a homeowner to being an investor, there's an attitude adjustment. So you really need to think about developing an investor mindset. And I do have actually a little course, a very short course, that teaches people how to become an investor and develop an investor mindset. That's another class. Okay, so we spent about a month doing that, different exercises. And when I say a month, I meet with people for 2-hour sessions, and then they have 2 weeks of homework, and then they come back and we have another 2-hour session before we even get to looking at property. So the whole point of this session is to show you how this gentleman went from not owning any investment property to owning a property that generated for him $60,000 cash on a $56,600 purchase. That's right. He made $60,000 on a $56,600 purchase. This is how it was done. It gets a little technical, so feel free to grab a piece of paper and a pen and follow me. Okay? I'll give you a chance to do that. Okay. This was a property that was owned by the Veterans Administration. It's called VA-owned property. It's available in almost any city in the United States. They are currently listed through your local MLS. This property was listed at $54,000. This is different from this number here. It was listed at $54,800. We bought it for $56,600. You go, Sandra, that's such a low amount of money. How can anybody buy a property for that amount of money? Well, you put on blinders, folks. If you're looking for something, you can usually find it. Is that right? When there's a horse race, they put on blinders on a horse. What does that horse see? Straight ahead to the finish line. That's why you have goals and objectives. So we aren't necessarily looking for this. We were looking for something that would make us money. Because remember, his goal is money for his college education for his daughter. It's not to find a property that he can buy for $56,600 that will net him $60,000. It is to find money for his daughter's college education. Always keep your goals in mind. We presume you have written goals, right? Okay. So, the property was $54,800. We offered $56,600. We got the bid. We owned the property, presuming we qualify for the loan. Guess how many phone calls I got from other agents? Do you realize you paid $56,600 for that property? It was only listed for $54,800? Well, yes, I do. And guess what? We got the bid. They got nothing else to do but call me up and tell me that I paid that for the property? That's pretty sad, isn't it? I don't remember last time I called up an agent and said, hey, do you realize you paid that for the property? Well, yeah, I do. And why did I pay that for the property? Are there times when you might want to pay more for the property than they're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. And are there times when I might pay less for a property than they're asking? Absolutely. It's called bid. You bid on something, what you're willing to pay. Some information you might want to know as to why I paid that for the property. The property was assessed at 120, a tax assessment. What the county or city says the property is worth is a tax assessment. Excuse me. They said the property was worth $125,000. How much is 56.6 times 2? It's not even $125,000. That's less than half the tax assessment. Duh. Okay, well, what are the comparables at? About $110,000, which is about, this is about half of the comparables. Do you think that's a pretty safe bid? Okay, so he says, after we get the bid, I think I'll sell it for $85,000 and take a quick, whatever, $25,000. Okay, well that's a thought. This guy's paying me for my services. I'm mentoring him. That means he's paying me for my knowledge, my skills, my experience, my brain power. But he's making the decision because he's a graduate of Annapolis.
Don't hold it against him.
Let's go. I'm not holding it against him. I'm just saying remember we have to teach him how to think like an investor, right? We've only given him a little bit of, 8 hours of training in this investor mindset. And he's had 4 years at Annapolis. And he's led men on the field. He's an expert in his field. He's not an expert in my field. So he's already made the decision. He's going to turn around and sell it for $85,000 and make a quick $25,000 or whatever. I can't remember the number he was using. This was a while back. Because he's a graduate of Annapolis. I've dealt with admirals, generals, lieutenant colonels, all of them. And they are experts in their field. I wouldn't want their job. I couldn't kill anybody. I couldn't command anybody to kill anybody. I can't do that. But I've been doing this a while, okay? So, okay, it's his decision. It's his money. It's his house. I would just facilitate him doing that. Meantime, however, we attended several meetings because he had to get his loan approved and work had to be done to the property and things went along, okay? So, as all this was happening, remember, he made $60,000 on this property, so something happened somewhere along the way, right? Okay, so he put down 5%. So how much is 5% down? 56.6. Anybody got a calculator? I can do it. How much? 28.30. So let's round it off to 28.50. Now, he has closing costs, which is another 5%. Now, these might not be the exact figures if I pulled up a settlement sheet, but let's just say 28.50. And we're going to round this off to 5,600. So, and he's got fix-up cost. At the time, we had a guy in the group who was a Class A contractor who was so good that he maintained an 800 credit score during the crash. Anybody remember the crash? It's been a while now, okay? But can you imagine a contractor maintaining an 800 credit score during that crash? He was that good. So I put the two of them together. You should have seen the work that was done in that house. And he did it for $4,400. I mean, didn't need a whole lot of work. So, fix up was $4,400. So he's got $10,000 into this property. Everybody see that? My number's correct, right? So he's got $10,000 in here and he paid $56,600. This is, so he financed, doesn't matter how much he financed, but basically the balance after $2,850 was financed. Everybody follow that? So out of pocket is $10,000. If you're following. Remember, get technical here, right? But not too technical. We just want to know how much is out of pocket, and this is financed, minus the down payment. So approximately, now if I'm sitting down with somebody and working their numbers, we're doing it to the penny. But for this illustration purposes, it's so you can get the idea. The important numbers here are the down payment and the out of pocket. Okay, and the fact that what he paid for this was a small percentage of what it was worth, like half. So we go to the meetings, and every single meeting we talk about this deal. Not for the whole meeting, but just for, and we get the input. Remember I talked to you about how the experienced people help the newer people, and we run over this deal every time. And every time we bring up the lease option aspect, and we talk about refinancing. Does everybody have these numbers? Okay. Because we're going to take these numbers off of here now, and we're going to show you what happens. All right. Now, here's what happened. We did this enough times where we showed him you can refinance this property and hold on to it. Take your cash out and still own the property. Does anybody ever heard about that? Yeah. You heard. Mike's heard, because we talked about doing that with your deal, right? Remember I told you they fixed it up so good? What a great deal they did, how well they fixed it up, how great it looked. I finally convinced this young man to give it a try. Why don't you just see what happens? So, I don't know if you're familiar with Section 8. Section 8 is a voucher system. Section 8 does not set, contrary to popular belief, they do not set the rent on the property. The person with the voucher decides what they want to pay. Did you know that? The voucher is for a certain amount of money. He gets somebody coming in from out of town with a voucher for $100 more than what it is locally. The guy takes a look at, you know what's coming, don't you? The guy takes a look at the property and he says, this property looks so good, I'm going to give you my whole voucher. So instead of $1,350, he gets $1,450 rent on this property. How about that? Gets another $100 more because he didn't go cheap on the rent. I have so many people who will come in and say, I'm going to go with linoleum. I don't want to spend the extra money for ceramic in my foyer and my kitchen and my baths. And I just look at them and I said, do you know how much more it will cost you just to go with ceramic instead of linoleum? Maybe $100 more. Do you know what that is over the lifetime? Ceramic will last you forever. Linoleum you're going to have to replace in 5 years if you have a good tenant. Investor mindset. Don't be an idiot. Okay, so he decides to rent the property. He rents it. for $1,450. Well, that's nice. It more than covers his payments on his his 54 whatever $1,000 note, which is like $250 or something. So he's getting some money, right? He's probably happy. But does that give him the money for his daughter's college education? No. Unless he puts it in the bank and keeps building on it. But what would you do if you had an extra, $1,450, $1,200 a month, and you were a Navy captain? I'd tell my wife she could quit work. Honey, you can quit work. We got an extra $1,200 a month. Wouldn't you? Oh, yeah. So where's the daughter's college education money now? It's not there. So that does not get him his goal and objective out of this house, does it? So that doesn't cut it. So what should he do now? What can he do? He goes to the bank. He says, I've got a lease for $1,450. Now, he's got a mentor who tells him to do this. He didn't come up with it on his own, because they don't teach this at Annapolis. They teach him how to be a Navy captain, make a lot of money. Okay. He rents for $1,450. He goes to the bank and he refinances it. Now, remember, he's been going to the group and they've been teaching him this stuff. And I've been meeting with him every 2 weeks, and I've been like his mommy, nagging and harping, because he's got a wife. He doesn't need a wife. He needs a mommy, a mentor. Okay. And he refinances it for a base price of $145,000, because when you get a loan based upon income, which is $1,450 times 12, and you're an investor, they give you 75% of it. So long story short, he nets $60,000 cash after he pays off his first mortgage, which he used to buy the property to begin with. How's that sound? That sounds good, doesn't it? Would you be happy with that? He paid off his loan. He got $60,000 cash, what is that cash going to do if he sticks it in the bank, doesn't reinvest it or anything? What is that cash going to do? His daughter's 18 months old. What is that cash going to do, even if it just sits in the bank and draws interest for 16 years?
But in the bank, it's strong loan.
It's going to pay for his daughter's education. What was his original goal and objective? Was it worth the money he paid me to mentor him?
Yes.
Absolutely. Was this a good deal?
Oh, yeah.
Could it be better?
Yeah, if it was me.
If it was you, you don't even own a house.
I know, that's why I'm here.
You're here so we can get you a house, right? All right, now, could it be a little bit better? How could it be better?
You use the money to invest in a little property.
Unfortunately, he was transferred. I hope he did that. That's a sad part of this deal. He was transferred and I couldn't work with him anymore. But it gets a little bit better. How about if he gets another $825 a month? Net? Everybody know what net is? After all expenses, after all payments, in his pocket. each and every month. How about that?
Yeah, that's a winner.
How much is that a year?
Well, she calculated.
9,900. $9,900.
Oh, and you know what? That's just $10 short of his original $10,000 investment every single year that he keeps that house. And we're not even counting the tax write-off he gets every year. Who wants me to mentor them?